I'm here at the Newland House, Huntington Beach's most iconic historic home. It contains many secrets, some of which you know, but one I'm sure you don't. We're going to reveal it to you today, and it's my single favorite hidden history fact we've covered so far.
I'm Chris Epting. I'm a writer and a storyteller, the author of several books and many articles about Huntington Beach. And what I like best is uncovering history that you may not be familiar with. This is Hidden Huntington Beach. The Newland House, located on Beach Boulevard near Adams Avenue, was built in 1898 and is the oldest and best preserved residence in Huntington Beach. The home once belonged to Huntington Beach pioneers and community leaders William and Mary Newland, who lived there for more than 50 years while also raising 10 children there. It was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1985 and today is open as a museum thanks to the City of Huntington Beach and the Huntington Beach Historical Society. I have heard there are some interesting hidden secrets there, so I turned to Darrell Rivers of the Historical Society. He's not just a skilled and dedicated historian, he practically grew up in this place. Well, Darrell, this is almost like your house as much as it was the Newlands' house. You grew up here.
Well, I have grown up giving tours here, not of my own free will, for quite a long time. So, welcome to the Newland House.
We walk into this front room here. What's the importance, the significance of this room?
So, if you didn't know the Newlands, you'd probably be received formally in this parlor. If you didn't know the Newlands, you'd come to the front door. If you knew the Newlands, you might just go to the back door.
And there was nothing out. 1898, when this house is built here, there's nothing around, right?
So it was not yet Pacific City. This was built, there was the Northam House, there was Santa Ana, of course.
What would this have been called, this area? Did it even have a name at that time?
Unincorporated Orange County. But Pacific City, in hopes that it would be like Atlantic City.
Right.
And so to all the people that complained about Huntington Beach becoming a tourist city, that was the original intent.
Right.
Going to drive people to the beach, and hopefully we could be a Pacific version of Atlantic City.
But before that, this home was built, and this room was sort of a formal area, right?
Yeah, so this is the parlor. This would have been weddings, wakes, and funerals. We've talked a lot, there's a lot of oral history in reconstructing the story of the Newland House. So
they had 10 kids.
They had 10 children, and there's a lot of grandchildren. So in interviewing a lot of the grandchildren, they didn't go into this part of the house a lot. These pocket doors would be closed. You might come in here for a wedding, a wake, or a funeral, or Christmas Day. The Christmas tree would have been right here, and we recreate that when we have our Christmas open house. But the grandchildren talk about those doors opening up, and there was the Christmas tree, and that was one of the only times that they could come in here. So, formal reception, and then we have our guest room.
Now the guest room, before we walk over here, this is where there's some real hidden history.
There is a bit of hidden history.
Because back then, describe what was a guest room used for?
So, if you were traveling if you were traveling in the area, you might be seeking out a hotel, might be seeking out some sort of inn. There wasn't any of that. And so you might stay with the Newlands if you were coming through this part of Orange County.
If you knew somebody who knew somebody, perhaps.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this room, because again, there is some real incredible hidden lore about who stayed in the guest room.
And I'm glad you used the term lore, because in our histories, some are written, some are oral, a list of guests come down to us, and I'm not sure about all of them. They claim Mark Twain. I'm not sure about Mark Twain.
That would be huge,
but
though.
Mark Twain, P.T. Barnum, one of the Japanese consuls, a Navajo chief who came to document a lot of Mrs. Newland's basket collection, which we're going to talk about later, and, of course, Irvine and Huntington.
The last one you just said, that's the one that intrigues me. If Henry Huntington stayed here, because there's no real record of him officially being in Huntington Beach.
That's
before
part of the
or
lore.
after 1903 when his company purchased Pacific City. So that would be really fascinating. If he stayed here, all of a sudden now we can place him really within city limits after he runs his trains down here. So that's fascinating. I've been in this house many times. I never knew about the supposed guests in the guest room. That's really special. You mentioned the Indian baskets. That's also a piece of the hidden history here. Can you show us what remains here in terms of that part of the story? Jared, what room is this?
So this is the sunroom. This was an addition that was built. One of the daughters had tuberculosis.
Okay.
And at the time it was prescribed sunlight and fresh air. So this was not original to the 1898 building.
One of the other pieces of hidden history, I think, involves the Indian baskets owned by Mary Newland, right?
So she was a big collector of Native American art, and in particular the baskets. We have photos of these cabinets actually being filled with baskets.
Oh, these are the ones in the pictures, these
These
cabinets?
these are the cabinets in the pictures. The love of Native American art began in the soil here. When they began to till the soil here, they saw Native American artifacts, shells and grinding stones, all sorts of things were found here, and this hill was very significant to the local natives here. And so that developed this interest, lifelong collection for Mary Newland. And she in particular collected baskets, and from all over the Pacific Northwest, Southwest, all sorts of baskets. And a lot of the collection can be seen today under the climate-controlled conditions of the Bowers Museum.
Which is good. They're safe.
Yeah,
they're
no,
protected.
they're absolutely safe. And we baby these here, but the vast majority of them are now at the Bowers Museum.
Why don't we head out back now? Let's go through the kitchen toward the back of the house and find some more hidden history, if you'll show me. Daryl, before we get out back, there's some hidden history here in the kitchen too, right?
So this kitchen was very much a working kitchen, and the Newland Ranch was a working farm. They had 500 acres, celery, sugar beets, barley, all sorts of things, lima beans. And the kitchen was used oftentimes to feed all of the workers.
Not just the family.
And so Mrs. Newland did quite a bit of cooking in here. So 10 children, 50 farm hands, you could be doing a lot in this kitchen.
Oh, it had to be crazy today. And it was never like this, where we are right now, this quiet and peaceful like this.
Probably not.
Let's keep going out back. Daryl, before we head outside, there's some hidden history right here in this case that takes you through all the different eras of the Newland House, right? Talk about what this represents.
So in the restoration of the Newland House, which happened in the 1970s and 80s, before the house was abandoned. The farm fell out of use. It was used by the oil company as a sort of a workers' hotel, and then it just was disused. There were vagrants living in here. Every window was broken.
It's a great save. This house is a great save.
This was a huge labor of love for hundreds of people. But the site is an archaeological site for many different centuries. There's Native American artifacts that we've talked about before, but there's also remnants of its life as a farm. So this hill has had many lives.
We're looking at thousands of years here, starting out down below, working our way up. The Native American artifacts go back, in some cases thousands of years, from the shells to the tools and everything, and working our way up. You've got a purse there, a woman's purse, change purse, all the way up to a mallet and horseshoe and more modern implements. But the story is really told in this case, isn't it? All right, well, outside exists, for me, is one of the great pieces of hidden history. You're going to take us there right now and show us.
We're going to go there.
All right. Daryl, before we head over to the side to the really piece of hidden history, out here, there's a lot of history where we're standing, right?
So there's a lot to be seen out here. There's the water tower.
Which is original.
It's original to the house. That was their water source, and it's covered, which is fairly unique. We also have one of the oldest trees on the property. Was planted with the cedar here was planted with the the house. And then we have a historic style, but not historic building with the barn. And the barn was constructed to have a caretaker there, and then the multi-purpose room in the bottom. This site has had a second life as a wedding venue. And I'm sure there are thousands of people out there that have been married at this site or had important events happen right here. So it's nice to see that the Newland Ranch is still very much a part of life here.
The palm tree is original as well,
The
right?
palm tree is also original to the house. So you look in any photograph of the house and you'll see that palm tree at different stages.
All right, well listen, let's get to what I think is the real pièce de résistance in terms of hidden history.
I'm
right?
just as excited about it. So it's very
All right, let's do it. Let's show the people. So Daryl, before we get to the big hidden history payoff, there are a couple of other examples here that I think you want to show us.
So there are some pieces of living history here, some specimen plants that I always think are interesting. There's this mulberry tree, which is dormant now, but it was planted by Mary Newland. Always gives off some mulberries.
How long does that go back?
So this would be more than 100 years old now.
Wow.
There's also the Newland rose. She kept roses. She also kept a cactus garden. These aren't the original cacti, but
the
there
Newland
is
rose
the
is very
Newland
well known
rose.
now.
And the Newland rose today is the award that the Historical Society gives out as a thank you for like lifetime achievement in living history and contribution to history in Huntington Beach.
So Mary Newland's legacy is alive and well here.
It
with
is.
the mulberry bush
And the roses.
and the roses. Now, those aside for a minute, there's something else we're standing on right now that I didn't know about. You told me about it not long ago, and my reaction, I'm sure, didn't surprise you that much, given what
We
you're
are
gonna tell me.
standing on the Holly Sugar Factory, or at least the remnants of the bricks of the Holly Sugar Factory.
What happened?
In 1911, the Holly Sugar Factory was built, and it's this iconic red brick building. It was to process sugar beets into sugar. It was a huge part of Huntington Beach industry, but when it was knocked down, a lot of those bricks were squirreled away. And when the Newland House was restored, they found a purpose for some of those bricks, and now they are the garden path here. And so you can see they were built by the LA Brick Company. So you see Labco on there.
The initials are right on there, and this is, for all we know, the last remaining pieces of the Holly Sugar Factory.
And that was an iconic building, a giant red brick building here in Huntington Beach.
And these
so
are the bricks. These are
it's
the
amazing.
bricks right here.
Yep.
Listen, Daryl, I doubt we'll do an episode with anybody that will reveal something this special and this notable. So thank you so much.
This is.
Look, you're an expert, you're an author, you're a historian, you're a reenactor. You live history every day. And so for you to be here every day, I can't tell people enough, when you come to the Newland House, when you come take a tour, this is who you want to be with, because as a storyteller and as somebody who emotes this stuff the way you do, it makes the house even more special than it already is.
Well, thank you for saying that. And thank you for pointing out to people one of these little Easter eggs of Huntington Beach history.
I want to thank Daryl Rivers and the Huntington Beach Historical Society for hosting us here today at the beautiful Newland House. I also want to thank Daryl for revealing what for me is the ultimate hidden history tip in Huntington Beach, the fact that the Holly Sugar Factory is lining the brick walkway out by the garden. If you want to join our Facebook group, look up Hidden Huntington Beach on Facebook. We have many members, lots of additional stories, home movies, photos, all kinds of things. I look forward to seeing you there, and thank you for being here on this episode of Hidden Huntington Beach.